Hi, my name is Alex, and today we're going to be talking about humidification as it pertains to your ukulele, or really any wooden instrument for that matter. I also play guitar, I play mandolin, and correct humidification plays a huge role into the health and playability of my instruments. If this sounds like a foreign concept to you, welcome to the club. It's something that a lot of people never think about, and I certainly never did until I learned the hard way, which I'll get to in a couple minutes here. So, why does humidification of your instrument matter? Well, our instruments are made of wood, and when the wood gets dry, it will shrink, and when it gets really humid, as it absorbs moisture, it will expand. Now, over-humidification, the environment being too humid, not a problem that I see very often, although it can be, but the major thing is the instrument getting really dry. Because what will happen is the wood will shrink, and when it shrinks, it can pull apart and it can split the wood. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen instruments damaged from lack of humidity. Mostly because I worked at a music store for 6 years, and every winter, when it would be really dry, at least once a week, someone would bring in their instrument and say, I take care of this thing, it's like my baby, I'm always really careful with it, I always keep it in the case. And today I opened up the case to play my instrument and there was a giant crack down the center. How could this have happened? And it is always because of lack of humidity. So a split in the wood down the center, that's a really common thing that will happen. But before that happens, there's some signs that your instrument is drying out. The biggest one that I always see is the frets being sharp. If you take your fingers and you run them along the side of the neck like this, your frets can stick out and be really sharp, because what happens is the neck, when it dries, the wood of the neck shrinks, but the frets are made of steel, so they don't shrink, and they'll poke out and they can be really sharp. They can even cut your finger. Just take a second and rub your fingers along the side of the neck and see if they're sharp. Another sign is if your strings are really close to the fretboard, and whenever you play your strings, they're really, really buzzy. Not because you're not pressing them down hard enough, but you're pressing them down really hard and it's still buzzing. That's because the instrument dried, and when that happens, the top of the instrument will shrink. It will shrink, but it'll also sink. And when it sinks down, the strings get closer to the fretboard and they buzz off of it really bad. The last thing that I'll see happen is the bridge will start, this piece right here, this is the saddle, this white piece, this piece is called the bridge. The bridge will start to lift off the instrument, because as the wood shrinks and expands and contracts and expands, the glue that's holding down the bridge will start to break apart, and the bridge will start to lift up. I see these all the time on like old instruments, instruments that have been sitting around for a long time. Like if you go to a garage sale and you're looking at instruments, if it's just a guitar or a ukulele or whatever that's been sitting around for a long time and it's never been humidified, the bridge will start to lift. What can we do to prevent all of this? Humidify your ukulele. There's a couple different ways to do that. You can get a sponge humidifier. Dario sells them. They're very popular. It's just a sponge inside a plastic case, and you stick it in the sound hole of your ukulele. It fits right in between the two middle strings and just kind of sits on top of your ukulele. They also make this one, it's kind of like a longer tube that I like. They're called Oasis, and it's got these little gel beads in it so that it retains the water longer. And same thing, it sits inside of your instrument and keeps your instrument humidified. One issue that I do see with these is people just get lazy with it, including myself. It's got to be in your case in order for it to work. So if you keep your instruments on a wall like me, that type of humidifier is not going to work. So it's got to be inside your case, and you've got to wet the sponge almost every day. The one with the tube with the gel beads in it, those last a little bit longer, usually 3 days to a week. But it's still something you got to keep an eye on. And I just find that people get really lazy with it. So what I like to do is have a room humidifier. I try to keep my office at about 45 to 50% humidity. I've got a little hygrometer here. It says it's 48% right now. I don't know if you can see that. It says it's 48% in here, which is good. That's perfect. for wooden instruments. When you start to get below 40% into that 30% range, that is when damage can start to happen to your ukulele. Okay, a couple other things I want to talk about, and that is, if you're watching this and you're like, okay, this seems like a lot, I don't really know if I want to do all this. Well, certain instruments are more prone to warping from humidity than others. If you have an instrument that's under $50, you probably don't have to worry about it too much, because those instruments are made from laminate wood. So laminate wood is pieces of wood glued together. It's a less expensive way to make an instrument, and they're actually more durable. It was always the people with the really expensive instruments that took care of them so well that would have the damage. And not judging anybody, because again, I'll talk about in a minute how I damaged this really nice expensive ukulele from not humidifying it. But my point is that if your instrument is all laminate wood, not as big of a thing to worry about. You still should keep an eye on it. Sharp frets, I still see that happening all the time. You don't want to leave your instrument near a heating vent or anything where dry air is coming out of it, or in a window, near a window, or in the car overnight, or in the garage, or something like that. It can still damage your instrument. But if you have an instrument that's over $200, like $150 to $200 to $300 to $400 and up, it's likely that the instrument is made of all solid wood. And solid wood is not pieces of wood glued together. It's just one solid piece of wood. And typically these instruments sound better. They resonate more, which is really good for the tone of your instrument and for the volume of your instrument. But they are more prone to warping from lack of humidity. So with those instruments, I highly recommend that you keep an eye on them, that you take care of them, especially during the colder months. In the summertime, when it's really hot, it's not as important, but maybe get a hygrometer and just check and see what the humidity is inside your house. Because if you have the AC running all the time, that can dry out the air too. Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for. I'll tell you about how I hurt this precious instrument that I bought from Hawaii on my honeymoon. So when I went to Hawaii, I bought this ukulele. We were on the island of Kauai, which I believe is one of the wettest places on earth. It's incredibly humid there. It rains a lot. And this is koa wood from the island of Kauai. And so as you can imagine, the wood is used to a very moist environment. And when I brought it back to upstate New York, where it's very dry, the wood did not like that. I kept it humidified, but I didn't really worry about it too much. I sometimes would forget to wet the sponge. It would maybe go a few days without being humidified. And what happened is the wood warped on the ukulele. And this little hump happened in the neck here. And what it did is it caused all the strings to fret out. Fret out is a term that means, you know when your string buzzes if you're not pressing down hard enough? Well, this was happening even when I was pressing down hard enough. The strings were so close to the fretboard that they were just every string was buzzing. So I had to take it to a technician. I had to spend money to have the instrument properly rehumidified and readjusted, and it still never got back to its optimal playability. There's still some notes that buzz a little bit here and there. I've tried to have it fixed multiple times. It drives me crazy. So don't be like me and not take care of your instrument. I'll put a link in the description below for a couple different types of humidifiers that I think are good. But if you can get a room humidifier, those are great. And again, not a dehumidifier, a room humidifier to keep your room at about 45 to 50% humidity. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to help you out. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great day. Take care.